So hi guys, welcome back to my channel QA Warriors, and here we generally discuss only the important questions that are asked in the testing interviews. So if you are new to my channel, so please subscribe to my channel. And today the topic for discussion is defect life cycle. So it is also one of the important question that is asked in mostly all of the interview. So let's start the session today. So when I'm talking about defect life cycle, so first let us understand what is a defect and what is the difference between the defect and a bug. Okay, so defect is something that is deviation from the requirement, and bug is something which is the result of the coding error. So this is the two different thing, and I have seen many people to think that defect and bug it is the same thing, but it's not. So from today, after watching this video, you will be very much clear about what is the difference between defect and bug. Okay. So defect, it is a flaw or an error in an application that restricts the normal flow of an application. Okay. What actually happens is when any mistake that is made by the developer during the designing or building of an application, and when this issue is found by the tester, then it is called as a defect. Okay. Defect means deviation from the requirement. And bug, it is the result of coding error. So, so why we need this defect life cycle? Okay. So the thing is that you found any issue, you reported it to your developer, and for tracking purpose, you have um, recorded this defect into project management tool like QC or Jira. But what actually happens in the defect life cycle is that there are many phases, or it is also called as bug life cycle, and the defects goes through a cycle covering different states in its entire life. Okay, so as soon as a new defect is found by a tester and until it comes to an end where the defect is finally closed, so till that time the process by which a bug or a defect goes is known as bug life cycle or a defect life cycle. So you can see in this diagram that the status starts with new. So once a defect is found, its status is new, then it changes to open, fixed, retest, closed. If it is not fixed, then it is reopened, then again brought to retest. Sometimes the status is changed to deferred, also rejected, duplicate. Many status are there. We will discuss in the upcoming slides. Okay, now let's first focus on three of the defect status. The first status is new. So as soon as you found a issue or any deviation from the requirement, you log a defect into the QC. And as soon as you log a defect into the QC, by default, its status is new. Okay. Once the defect is logged, it is assigned to some developer. Okay. In that case, the status of the defect is assigned. Okay. It also happens that the tester can also assign this defect to the developer who is looking after this new functionality, or it may happen that the lead of the tester can also assign it to the developer team. Okay. Now third thing is the open status. So as soon as the defect is assigned to a developer, they start working on that particular issue. When they start working on that particular issue, and if they feel that this defect is not appropriate or they are not able to reproduce, so what they can do, there are four different status that they can use to move this defect to those statuses. So those status are duplicate, deferred, rejected, or not a defect. In case if they are not able to find this defect appropriate. Okay. Now, fixed status. So once you have raised a defect, it was in new status. Again, it came to assign. When it was assigned to a developer, the developer start working on it and it moves the defect to open status. When the developer makes necessary code changes and fix that uh, issue, what they will do, they will move your defect from open to fixed status. Okay. Once the defect is fixed and the developer has deployed that particular part of code into the QA environment, what they will do, they will change the status from fixed to pending retest and they will assign back this defect to the QA team member or the tester. Okay. Now it's the tester's responsibility when they start retesting that code, they will change back the status from pending retest to test. Okay. Once they move it to the retest status, they start checking whether that issue that they have raised is fixed or not. And there might be chances that if the issue is not fixed, then they can reopen that defect as well. So now, once the defect is in retest status, and if the tester doesn't find any issue in that defect, so what they will do, and if they feel that yes, it is accurate, so what they will do, they will change the status of the defect from retest to verified or tested. Somewhere in the quality center, it is tested or verified. Okay. Now, if the tester feels that the issue still exists or the issue still persists, so what they can do, they can change the status back to reopen. Back to reopen in the sense, then in this case, the defect will again be assigned to the developer. Okay. Now, once the defect is in verified status and when the defect does not exist any longer, then the tester can change the status from verified to closed. Okay. Once the defect is in closed status, the bug life cycle ends here. Okay. But there are many other status as well. So let's see. So as I have told you that during the open status, the developer has the right to move the defect to the following status as well. The status can be duplicate, the status can be rejected, it can be deferred, and it can be not a bug. Okay, so let's take an example for duplicate that you have already raised a defect and you have assigned it to some developer and one of your team member, he or she found the same issue and raised the same defect. Okay, it can happen that the same defect is repeated twice or thrice as well. If the team is big and the team member have not checked the project management tool QC or Jira that whether this defect is logged or not and they raise the same defect. So in that case, what will happen is developer can put your defect into duplicate status. Okay, because they are already working on one of your original defect. Okay. Now second thing is rejected. Your defect can come into this status if the developer feels that defect is not genuine or if they are not able to reproduce. It may happen that you may have selected some wrong test data or you were testing in some wrong environment or you were testing this code when the code was not yet deployed. So in that case what it can happen that the developer can move your defect to rejected status. Okay. Now another status is deferred. sometimes what happens is that during when the sprint starts in agile methodology, we will discuss about this sprint and all. So let me tell you about, so let's consider for a timeline. So for a particular release, there is a particular timeline that within 30 days you have to complete the testing and all the defect testing, regression testing and all. Okay. But till the last day, we are seeing that some of the defect which is not of high priority and which has less impact on the business. So what, and there is very less time to fix that, and also there is no possibility of getting this defect tested or doing the regression testing. So in that case, what it will happen is that the Scrum Master will change the status of your defect to deferred, which means that this defect is not neglected. This defect will be taken to next release and it will be worked on in the next release on priority. First, they will have to, developer will have to fix this defect. Okay. Now, not a bug. Not a bug means if there is any issue which does not affect the functionality of the application, then the status is assigned as not a bug. Okay. So, example that you have raised a issue that you are not selecting any particular checkbox and you are hitting any button, and because of not selecting the checkbox, that functionality is not working. So it was the tester's mistake and it is not a defect. Okay, it's not a genuine defect because it's not affecting the functionality. It's only because of the wrong steps or the wrong method you are using to test that particular functionality. So in that case, what will happen to your defect is that the developer can send your defect to not a bug status. Okay, so be very very careful with all these four status, that is duplicate, rejected, deferred and not a bug, because most of the time in all the companies what happens is that if your defect stands in any of the four condition, that is duplicate, rejected, deferred or not a bug, so you may have to go through the RCA process. RCA process means root cause analysis process. So what happens in that process is that you will have to derive the information that what was the reason why your defect went into these status, whether it was your mistake or whose mistake it was, and also what will be the countermeasure that you will be taking in future to prevent this kind of situation in future, so that your defect may not lie in all of these four status. Okay, so be very very careful. So whenever you are raising a defect, first check in the project management tool QC or Jira whether it is raised. If it is raised, so just update that defect with your name. Don't raise duplicate defect. Also make sure that whatever defect you are raising, it's a genuine defect and you are able to reproduce it. You can ask your fellow team members to check whether he or she is able to encounter that defect or not. Sometimes it may happen that because of some cookie issue or some other temp file, you can see some issue, but after clearing the cache or the cookie, you are not encountering that defect. So, and for deferred, even if your defect is in deferred status, chase that defect and get that defect fixed before providing the sign off. And not a bug, be very very careful when raising any defect. Make sure that whatever defect you are raising, it should not come under all these four criteria. Yeah. So now as a summary part, let's see. Once let's revise what we learned today is once you raise a defect, it will be in the new status. Once the defect is assigned to any developer, he or she can put it into open status. If there is no time to fix the defect, it can go to deferred status. And if your defect is not genuine, if it is a duplicate defect, so in that case, what it can happen, your defect can be rejected. Once the developer feels that this is a genuine defect, he or she starts working on it, they can, uh, after fixing that issue, they can move your defect to fixed status. Once it is in fixed status, it is assigned back to QA. QA retest this defect. If the issue still exists, QA can reopen this defect, and you can ask the developer again to look into this issue. So once again it is fixed, it will come to retest. Once you retest this issue and the issue is no longer observed, so tester can close this defect. So that's all in this video, and be very careful while raising defect, and also please learn all the different statuses of defect. It is asked in almost all the interviews, and also learn about this deferred status, because most of the time people are not sure what the deferred status of a defect tells. So learn about all the defect status, and that's all in this video. So please do like, share and subscribe, and subscribe is very important, and subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.